Well, it's official. Midnight Strike 3625 discography reviews bring new albums. Pretty much every album discography review that I have done on the music side of things has been in the exact same year as a new album that had or had not been unveiled or revealed or released at the time that I started doing the discography review, and ACDC is no exception. When I announced that I was doing the ACDC discography review series in early 2014, we didn't know that Rock or Bust was going to be coming out in December of that same year towards the end. All we knew was that ACDC had not done a single album since Black Ice in 2008. Well, midway through that year, it was actually unveiled and revealed that ACDC was indeed going to be coming out with a new album, and 2020, 4 years later, 5 years later actually, 6 years later, Jesus Christ, go figure, 6 years later, after much turmoil in the band, beginning 4 years ago, which is what I was thinking, in 2016, with Brian Johnson's health issues, the band is back. Right after I continued the ACDC discography review, because earlier this year, towards the beginning of the summer, I actually started up on the ACDC discography reviews again, basically covering what I had missed. And lo and behold, a surprise new ACDC album. I feel like I got powers or something. So, basically, ACDC came back with Brian Johnson at the helm on vocals, Phil Rudd on drums, Cliff Williams on bass, and the entire Rock or Bust lineup returns, minus Chris Slade. Even though he didn't play on the album, he was heavily featured and heavily prominent on the touring side of things when they were live. So when it comes to ACDC coming back, they are releasing an album on November 13th, 2020, called Power Up. And the leading single of this album is entitled Shot in the Dark. And let me just say, this is the best song AC/DC has released since Rock and Roll Train. And honestly, it gives me shivers down my spine when I listen to it. The Thunder from Down Under is back, folks. Catchy riffs, really heartwarming vocal harmonics with the backing vocals, simplicity in the guitars, but just catchy enough to make you want to listen to it again and again and again. This is tried and true AC/DC down to the last 3 chords. This is an amazing song, and let me just tell you, it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Brian Johnson is back up to touring after many health issues that actually had him cancel, like I mentioned before, and ACL Rose stepped in, presumably being the next vocalist for AC/DC. So this is an absolute monumental moment right now in rock and roll history. AC/DC is back for at least one more album. It's rumored to be their last. That's what many rock stars are saying, like Dee Snider and the people who perpetuated the rumor that Brian Johnson had been back since 2018. That's kind of what we've been hearing on and off. But this song definitely kicks ass. That's really all there is to say about it. Brian Johnson's vocals are just spot on compared to the last couple albums. I've got to say, I like his vocals better here than I do on Rock or Bust. Pretty much the entire album. It's back to Black Ice stature. And Black Ice blew me away when that first came out. When I heard the first 3 words spoken in the song Rock and Roll Train, One Heart Angel. And when those 3 words were spoken, I knew that Brian Johnson had his tone back. He had his voice back. He had quit smoking. A lot of health-related issues had been resolved since Stiff Upper Lip was released in 2000, and this is the exact same way. Now, Powered Up is going to be a monumental album of sorts, or at least a memorial album, I should say, because it's probably going to be their last studio release, as well as being the first album released after Malcolm Young's death, the original founding rhythm guitarist for AC/DC, and one of 2 members that had been with the band since the very beginning. He died and succumbed to his disability, or disease, whatever you want to call it, disorder, dementia, unfortunately, in November of 2017, and he had retired from the band 3 years prior to that, right before Rock or Bust was released. So that was actually the first album without Malcolm Young playing on it, albeit he had a lot of contributions. So every single AC/DC album up until this point, from High Voltage Australia to Power Up, is going to have some sort of influence or contribution from Malcolm Young, and Shot in the Dark is no different. You can definitely feel just the classic AC/DC vibe. I mean, this is where it's at, guys. I'm going to give this song a 9.8 out of 10 because the only critique that I can give it is the fact that it is too short. I want more. I want more songs, I want more music, and that's been a problem with AC/DC during the last couple of studio albums, is they've hardly ever had a track that passes the 4-minute mark. I mean, they've even had a lot more tracks lately that have been 2 minutes and some odd seconds, like in the case of Play Ball and Rock the House, which, in my opinion, are two of the best tracks on Rock or Bust, but I digress. So when it comes to Shot in the Dark, it is definitely a must-listen when it comes down to it, guys. I am highly impressed, and if you haven't already, then check it out. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.